NCCU, your community financial partner, brings to you Beyond the Mortgage.
Affordable rates, affordable price, NCCU, everything nice. Go do a course, go take a trip. Beyond the Mortgage 246. You take the mortgage already, to make your pocket go empty. Beyond the Mortgage, NCCU will keep you steady. You need to buy a new fridge, you want to purchase a city. Get rid of medical bills and invest in the green energy. Beyond the Mortgage, beyond the Mortgage, beyond the Mortgage. Everything nice, beyond the Mortgage, beyond the Mortgage, beyond the Mortgage. NCCU for life. 246, yes, 246. Wow, 246.
Beyond the Mortgage, 2% savings, 4% retirement solutions, loans available at 6%, and our special BTM line of credit. Terms and conditions apply.
I love the Kalinago territory, I love the Kalinago people, and I really embrace my culture.
How the hell do we expect to survive as a communal society in a capitalist system?
We need to teach that history that have not been taught.
Caribe Hard Cider. Moments made extraordinary.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, one and all. Hope you guys are having an awesome Tuesday. Welcome to the show. Welcome. Come on in, come on down. The bell has rung. It's time to start the show. I am happy to be back here with you for yet another show. So happy to have you joining me wherever you are tuned in. My name is Jael Joseph, and I am excited to be back here. It's Tuesday. It's the second day of having a show this week. We just passed the new year. Well, the start of the new year, I should say. We just went over the bump, the new year, and we're getting ready for so many different things throughout the duration of this year. And I'm so happy that you can join me because we have lots in store. We have lots of conversations. We have lots of interactions. We have so much exciting things planned for you wherever you are. If you're in Dominica, if you're across the Eastern Caribbean, if you're in the United States, if you're in the UK. Of course, we have lots in store for you. Good evening to you, Maureen. Thank you very much for joining. Good evening, Sandra. Sandra is definitely always coming live, and I truly appreciate you, Sandra. Thank you very much for joining. Don't forget to share the live once you hop on. This is all our conversations are important, okay? But this is a very important conversation, right? And even before I get into what we're talking about today, I just want to acknowledge those of you on Facebook, those of you on YouTube. I see a few folks joining us on YouTube. Those of you who are joining me on LinkedIn, good evening to you. And thank you very much for joining us here this evening. And we're going to get the show started. We have an exciting show planned for you. And I'm not sure if it's an exciting show because, sometimes those conversations can become a little heavy, a little hard, a little hot, a little, I don't know, sad. But we have to talk about it. It's things that we must talk about because when we don't talk about it, it's almost like we're taking it and we put it under the carpet. and that's our mental health. So we're going to be talking mental health tonight, and I have a wonderful individual joining me. She is top notch in Dominica, okay? Top notch psychiatrist in Dominica, consultant psychiatrist at the acute, help me, acute, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. But she is on with me, the APU. So she's at the APU, and I'm so happy to have her join me here this evening. She has such a wealth of knowledge, and I've listened to her speak many times, be it on radio. I've heard her speak. I've spoken to her. I was doing a research paper years ago, and I spoke to her as well, and she offered such interesting information. I say interesting because it's interesting. When you live in a small island, it's just interesting, right? We're gonna talk to her a little bit and talk about our mental health. I think it's very important. I see Dr. Nesty joining, Esther Roberts is on, and Janice is on. Thank you guys for joining. Share the live as soon as you come in. Make sure you hit that share button and share the live and let somebody else in on the conversation. It's a very important conversation we're having here this evening. I want to say thank you very much to my sponsors. Thank you very much to the National Cooperative Credit Union, our community financial partner. Of course, they have exciting deals going on besides the Beyond the Mortgage that's ongoing. They have this membership madness, which continues until February the 28th, and that's the last day of February. You can essentially invest in the future of your credit union. It's your credit union. C'est là où tu mets l'argent, it's yours. And there are draws happening, and one grand draw in March. There are 2 ways to win big. With every purchase of 2 shares plus, you enter. So they'll enter you into the draw. And if you refer people to the NCCU, for each successful referral, both the referrer and the referee will also be entered into the draw. All right, and you get a chance to win big with the National Corporate Credit Union. I want to say good evening to all the folks on my timeline who are members of the NCCU. If you're a member of the NCCU, put your money sign down for me. Just drop your money sign down if you're tuning in and you are a member at the NCCU. I would absolutely love to know. I see, yes, Allison, I was quiet in for the word is acute psychiatry unit Motica Guay. That's okay. That happens sometimes. Sometimes I stumble with my own tongue. My brain is moving faster than my mouth, and sometimes my mouth can't catch up. So I saw custom with me already, and all you on my life, all your custom. Y'all know the vibes. Y'all know how it is already. Okay. Those of you who are my super fans and my faithful followers, thank you very much for tuning in. I want to big up my producer, big up Samaj. Samaj has been working hard behind the scenes, getting our shows prepared for this month going into February. We booked for the entire month of January. We booked solid as a rock, right? And we're going to be even more booked coming up in February. We have so many exciting shows coming up. This week, we still have Marvel Williams, who's going to be joining us tomorrow, and then we have Superline, who's going to be joining us on Thursday. And next week, we have more guests and more. We'll be dropping some information to let you know who we have in store. But I don't want to keep this conversation any longer right now. I don't want to keep rambling because I want to bring on my guests so we can have a really wholesome conversation. I know a few submitted your questions. Let me tell you, I love those incognito questions senders, right? You send your questions early o'clock. We do have a poll running. You take part in the poll, and we're asking questions. The 2 questions we're asking: if you felt anxious or depressed, would you see a psychiatrist? And the options on the poll is definitely, and the next option is no, I don't want people in my business. So you can select whichever one. I'm trying to test, how we respond to this sort of information, and I hope I can continue to give you guys these kinds of conversations right into your phone, right to your home, and you don't have to step out and do much. All right. Without further ado, I want to welcome to my show. I want to let me see who's on the timeline. Who's on the timeline? Good evening. Hi, Charlene. Hi, Allison. Hi, Montstrat is locked in. Catherine is locked in Montstrat. Nisha Charles is on. Nisha's like, let's start the conversation. Nisha, check. Jael, look up at the top. Time to start the conversation. Okay, I get the point. I'm going to start. I without further ado, I want to welcome my guest to the show for the very first time. I want to welcome Dr. Nadia Wallace. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Jael.
What you laughing? I give you a joke.
You. Good evening to you and happy new year to you. Good evening to your guests, to your listeners right now. Happy new year to everyone. It's a
Happy New Year.
pleasure being here with you again. Well, it's my first time, but speaking to you again
Yes,
after the
yes,
last time we did. How are
yes.
you?
I am good. I am good. That's a really interesting question that you ask. How are you? If
Yes.
I have to be completely honest, because a lot of times we're not completely honest. We always,
A lot of
I
time,
good,
right?
I well, I
Yes.
fine.
I couldn't be
I,
better.
I am tired. I am tired. It was a long day. Today was my first official, day back into the swing of, life because during the
Right.
break, you take some breaks off, you take some time off, whether it is because you're spending time with family or you're off from work because some people get time off during the season for from work. For
Right.
self-employed people like me, we don't always take time off from work. But I was happy to take a little bit of a break. I got a little bit of a break and I got to regroup a little bit. But when you just go back to work and you're just like, Bon Jay, I need a vacation from the vacation. So,
Yes.
so that is
Takes
how I feel. And today
it
was my
takes some
first.
time to start back to get back into the groove. And
Yes.
it's important to take time off. It's important to take time off. And we just came from the season, the Christmas season and the New Year, and that's a time for family. I have to spend with family and friends, the people who are important to you. So
Mhm.
just like you, I took a little break myself and I started off again today.
That's
When I say started off, I mean in my private
good.
practice. So, yes. So well, it's
Wow.
necessary because we have to take care of our mental health. We have to take care of our mental health. A lot of times we just think we can just go on and on and on, and we forget that we it's like our body is like a machine. It's like a car, right? It needs to be serviced. It needs to be fueled, and if that's not done, guess what? It's going to break down, and it breaks down whether you want it to or not. So it's the very same thing with our mental health. It's
Yes.
important that we manage our mental health, we take care of it so that
Yes.
we
So
can function.
thank you for joining me. And I mean, I have so many things I want to ask. But even just me, I want to ask. This is what right now, y'all on the live. This is my therapy session. What? So many things. This is my free therapy session. So many things I want to talk about, and I like to consider myself a bit of an open book when it comes to mental health because, and a huge part of it has to do with, um, not just necessarily because sometimes people say you're influenced by your environment, and yeah, I was brought up in Dominica. I grew up here, but I eventually moved to Canada, and I lived there for quite some time. That's where I became an adult. So my perceptions of things like mental health is slightly different from how people in Dominica will view it. However, I still had my own reservations about certain things because I understand how much of a small community we were in. And before somebody ends up in APU, boy, just she fall, she crazy, she mad, like there's always this stigma associated with mental health, whether it's postpartum depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's just being depressed. There's so many different schizophrenia, whether we just label everything as mad. The person is mad, and that's how society has made it seem. And I've suffered from anxiety, and I think that is probably the first time I'm publicly saying this. My close friends, they know I have this it's an illness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, like at one point in time, it was borderline where I might have needed to get medication for it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's how serious it is. And I feel like I cannot have a platform and come and ramble and talk about mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to tell people, like it's okay to seek help. It's okay to reach out to a therapist or a psychiatrist, um, without saying, like, without speaking my truth, which
Right.
I mean, I've learned to deal with it. I've learned to manage it. I remember the first time, so I will just give a brief overview before I get into talking to you a little bit. The first time I realized, or I knew I was suffering from anxiety, um, I remember I felt this tightness in my chest. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was, and when I went to the hospital, I was actually diagnosed in Dominica. When I went to the hospital, I remember the doctor on duty at the time, and I can never forget who she is. She says, "Child, you had an anxiety, you had a panic attack." I said,
Right.
"Oh, when you have panic," I say, "But white people that does have them things." They're like, "What are you talking about? Like, we don't get panic attacks." you know and I remember, even in my own experience, witnessing people getting on, like when they had like exams coming up, and I'm like, "Go chill your soul." To me, I was just like, "Go relax, it's not that serious." Right? But it just seems like everybody's breaking point, or everybody's point is different.
Right.
It's not going to happen to everyone. And I remember talking to like a really good friend of mine, in Canada, who was the first person who actually said to me, "Girl, go to a therapist, like get that shit under control."
Mm-hmm.
um, Big up my friend Ricardo, who said to me, your mind is like the biggest engine in your body, and if it's not functioning properly, it will really break down the rest of your body. Like,
Exactly.
if your mind isn't functioning, and that is essentially what controls everything's, so to speak. So he's like, get it. And he goes to therapy even though he doesn't have issues. He's like, "I don't have an issue. I have nothing wrong with me, but I just feel like I need someone to talk
Mm-hmm.
so that brings us here today. And I just kind of wanted to kind of break the ice, because I know a few folks will be on here and they'll be like, they probably want to ask a question and they're scared. They don't know how society might view them if they ask a question. People, actually, nobody commented under the post, because people are like, "Silence of the lambs," because it's like they don't want to, but they just sent me direct messages. So I got
Right.
messages on WhatsApp. People wanting to ask questions, and it just shows how our society still is and remains,
Mm-hmm.
how mental health is so stigmatized. And I wish one day that we can break the stigma, and we can get our minds right. you know so
So
thank you for being on.
you
That's
most welcome. It's my pleasure being here with you, and any opportunity that I get to, to raise awareness when it comes to mental health, to sensitize the public on issues of mental health, I welcome it, because this is so important. And before we start, I just want to say thanks for sharing your story with us. It's important that people out there, everyone knows that having a having anxiety disorder or even a mental illness is not as bad as we think, because it doesn't mean you are functional. You're functional. You're living a normal life, right? So to help to clarify this myth that surrounds mental health, I wanted to focus on two things. And your friend touched on it briefly when he told you how important it is to look after our mental health. And when focusing on our mental health, we focus on our mind, right? This here, it's an organ. Our brain is an organ, just like all the other organs in our bodies, right?
Mhm,
And as you said, it's like the engine. Our brain controls every other little function in our body.
mhm,
So it works constantly. It's constantly at work, and it has to be working properly for everything else to function.
mhm,
You understand? So if we are aware of this, and if we're aware of this, we'll then recognize the importance of taking care, of servicing, of taking care of our mental health.
Right.
Because without good mental health, we are like nobody, we're nothing. We are non-functional. So that is one of the points that I want everyone here to take. Secondly, is that mental health, a lot of times when people hear mental health, they tend to think of madness. They tend to think of insanity. But that's not what mental health is. And I always like to refer to the definition of WHO of mental health. And when we think of our mental health, we need to think about of our ability to realize our functions, our ability to cope with our daily stressors, and there's so much. Our ability to work, to be able to work productively, get up in the morning, go to work, be able to be productive, communicate with your colleagues, sit and in a space and focus on what you're doing, and for you to be able to produce. And finally, when we think of mental health, we need to also think of that ability that we have to be able to contribute to our community. So, this is what mental health is. But a lot of times we think of mental health and we think crazy. So, from this little definition there of WHO and mental health, it shows clearly that mental health does not mean, or I should say, it's clear that without we can have good mental health and have a diagnosable mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
or the other way around,
Wow.
right? Where you don't have a diagnosable mental illness, but you still don't have good mental health. So you see, they're separate. They're separate entities. But a lot of time, we just put everything in one big basket, and we think mental health is equivalent. It's synonymous to madness. So I
Mm-hmm.
want us to remember those 2 points: the importance of taking care of our brain, which, by taking care of this, we protect our mind, we protect our mental health, and also just educating ourselves on what mental health is about. Mental health is not being crazy. It's
Yes.
not craziness. There too, no, it has nothing, one has nothing to do with the other.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Dr. Wallace. I wanna kind of, first of all, I want you to introduce yourself to the public, because some folks might say, I call you Dr. Wallace, doctor. I introduce you as a psychiatrist, but just to give us a little briefing, because sometimes it'll say, "Well, how she know all that now? Who for her now? Where she come out?" People come on there and they're not sure, they're not, and I introduce you at the top of the show, but just to kind of let you introduce yourself in terms of type of work that you do, and why you even got into this, because there's not many of you in Dominica,
No, no,
right?
no.
So I suspect you're probably exhausted because.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But
So tell
I'm
us a little
here.
bit about
So
you.
as you said, I'm Dr. Nadia Wallace. I am originally from Portsmouth, and I did my undergrad in Cuba, graduated in 2003, came home, worked in Dominica for a bit, and then I moved on to specialize in psychiatry at the University of the West Indies in the St. Augustine campus in Trinidad. I've been back home now for the past 10 years, and I am employed at the acute psychiatric unit as the officer in charge, and I work with the Ministry of Health, and I manage everything that has to deal with mental health in Dominica, working at the unit, also working in collaboration with primary health care, also doing consultation leads of psychiatry with at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital, with schools, churches, the judiciary system, working with all the other social services that we have, because everything is related. And especially when it comes to mental health, as we always say, mental health, when focusing or when dealing with mental health, we have to take into consideration the all the biopsychosocial determinants. So in other words, we have to tap into all these different aspects in society and look at the person and give them this holistic care, because they could have the biological determinants, the psychological determinants, the social determinants of mental health. So, in managing anyone with mental disorder, we have to manage all these determinants. So, this is what I do in a nutshell. And um, I'm passionate about mental health. I'm passionate about helping others, these vulnerable individuals with mental illnesses, because of, as you know, it's the stigma, the discrimination that exists when it comes to mental health. I I always wanted to be a psychiatrist. So a lot of people ask me this question, Doctor, are you a psychiatrist or a psychologist? And what's the difference? You know, so
Thanks for breaking that down for us. Now, yes.
so I am a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor who specializes in the field of psychiatry, that is, in the assessment, diagnosis, and treatment of mental disorders. So this is what I do. And as part of my job, therapy is also part of what I do. Unlike a psychologist is a therapist and not a doctor. So they will not be able to diagnose and treat as a psychiatrist. So that's the difference.
Okay. Yeah, and a lot of people would question that and say, "Oh, what's the difference?" Some people are like, "Oh, I can go to a therapist, but I'm not going to a psychiatrist." They feel like psychiatrist is the extreme.
Right. And that's where, and that's an error that we make. Visiting a psychiatrist does not mean that you are crazy.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned before, your friend, as he does, he sees a therapist or he sees a psychiatrist just to go and help him. Remember the definition of mental health that I gave initially? So sometimes you may have difficulty in coping with your stresses, and you need someone to give you a different perspective. You need
Yes.
someone
Yes.
to help you, to see things differently, to help you to cope, to think of other avenues that you did not explore. And by seeing a psychiatrist, all this is brought to light. And it
Yes.
has nothing to do with you being crazy,
Right.
nothing at all. So, and we have to, again, we spoke of servicing that body and
Hmm.
servicing, like I said earlier, the vehicle. So it's part of servicing our brain when we do this. It's like
Yes. And
any other illness.
we definitely need to normalize these kinds of discussions, and that it's not something that we should be scared of. And I'm interested to know, like, what would you say are probably some of the most common mental health issues that you encounter during your time? What would you say is one of the most? Because I know, like, from like for this conversations for health series, because this is a series that we're doing for the entire month, and this is my way of giving back to my community. That's my community on social media, in terms of getting people to guests who are trained and knowledgeable in their various fields, specifically around health, because I studied a health journey late last year, and I feel like you can't just, sometimes we want to focus on just our weight loss, and we forget other things. And I know, like, during the end of the year, a lot of people feel so despondent, or they feel like they didn't achieve what they were supposed to achieve, or they felt like they had a really hard year, or some people couldn't even they could not even probably afford a ham for Christmas,
Right,
or
right.
to, not gone are the days when we used to, like, everybody would change their curtains during Christmas time, and some people might, and a lot of it falls on a lot of women. I feel like and men are stressed as well, but especially us as Caribbean women, we put so much emphasis on so many different things that we're involved in, like being homemakers, being entrepreneurs, being professionals, being in various organizations, and having big roles in society, even leadership positions, because, have that flexibility, and that's available to us. It's not something that, in North America, you might say, oh, black women are, you tend to not see them in these kind, but in the Caribbean, we don't have these problems. And our problem, which is the flip, is that we're so engaged as women in so many different things
Mm-hmm.
that we often forget our mental health, and we often forget, we forget our health a lot of times, but our mental health is usually placed on the back burner. And for this, I was doing a little bit of research,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked AI, what is the top, I literally did it, I asked AI, what is the biggest problem as it relates to mental health in the Caribbean. And I want to hear what you say, because I want to see if AI is on par with what you're recommending or what you're suggesting. All right, guys, I'm not sure what happened. I think we lost. You guys seeing me? Let me know if you guys are seeing me. If you guys are still seeing me, give me a thumbs up quickly so that I know you guys are still on and you're seeing me. I think we might have lost Dr. Wallace, but she'll jump right back on as long as it's not Dominic that take lights. um, Hopefully she can come back on. We'll just wait for her to come back on as we continue to, oh, so people are seeing, we can see you both. People are seeing me, but we're not seeing her, so she just dropped off. Dr. Wallace, try coming back on. um Hopefully she can come back on. So if you're just dropping in right now, we're having a conversation on mental health, especially as it relates to mental health as Caribbean women. I felt like this was a very important topic to touch on at the start of the year, especially as it relates to us as Caribbean women, and how we view mental health and how we even look after ourselves. And I decided, this would be a great way to start off the year. I want to say thank you very much for those who supported so far. Okay, Dr. Wallace has come back, but those who supported so far, thank you very much for all of your support. And we are continuing the conversation for the duration of the month. If you'd like to sponsor, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. Dr. Wallace is back. I told you that happens.
And I never left. I was hearing you and seeing you all the time.
Sometimes the internet is interneting, and when it does, we just go get off and we come back on. Like, I don't even let it trouble me that
Right.
much. But
So,
my last thing I was asking, what would you say is probably
most
one of,
prevalent.
yes, yeah, the most common mental health issues that you,
Yes. So I can say to you, since COVID, the most prevalent mental illnesses that are in Dominica, and I don't think it's just only Dominica, are anxiety disorder and major depressive disorder. Is that what AI gave you?
that's exactly what AI said.
Yes, and that's the most prevalent. I mean, so many individuals suffer, and you were speaking about anxiety disorder and the symptoms that you have. And it's amazing. Just about every person who I see with anxiety disorder, they will say to me, "But doctor, there are other persons with that same condition. I thought it's me
Yes,
alone."
there are. Mine was so bad. I got hives and developed psoriasis.
Oh wow, wow,
That
yeah,
is how bad it got. Like psoriasis is permanent. Like I
yeah,
was never gonna leave me. You
yes.
know.
It
So
can be
that happened.
debilitating.
That was triggered during COVID. The worst of it
Right,
was during
right.
COVID. So you are
Yes, yes.
absolutely right about that.
Right, right.
Like,
The
this is
stress of
crazy.
everything that existed, the uncertainty, the separation, the loss of jobs, loss of loved ones, just the fear of what's going to happen. This COVID really had us in a state of mind that it was mind-boggling, and it contributed to so many disorders. But the two most frequent were anxiety disorder and the major depressive disorder. And it continues even now, where And you touch a bit about on your symptoms of anxiety disorder. A lot of times persons will, the symptoms will make them believe that they're actually experiencing a heart attack, because they will have chest pain, tightness in the chest, they have this choking sensation of death, they have tremors, they feel like they'll say to me, Doc, I'm feeling like I just losing control. I just cannot control my mind. I can't control anything. And they think the worst of everything, very negative and worry constantly. The slightest situation will cause them to be so worried and not be able to think or do anything but what their preoccupation. And when this happens, they'll have so many visits to the accident and emergency department. It affects your functioning at school, where students will not be able to do their exams. They will study, and when they present to the exam, and they'll just forget everything. Some of them can't even sit in the exam to do the exam. And at work, some people will not be able to, they will not socialize, they'll be very withdrawn, at work, and not interact with their colleagues. They'll not take part in any activities, that they'll be scared to walk on the streets. They'll be thinking that people are looking at them and judging them constantly, and something is wrong with them, and at home is the same thing, where I've had persons who they were not able to function, and women, they're not able to function as mothers, not able to function as wives. They're just not able to cope with this regular stresses of life. They were not able to manage them. So yes, anxiety disorder can be debilitating. And but the thing is, this is something that can be managed. It is something that can be treated, and you can get your normal functioning again and be able to live a normal life. So it's like any other illness that you get, and you get treated, and then you're able to function. So this is the first one. The other one is major depressive disorder, and major depressive disorder is another debilitating mental illness. It can really impair your functioning and your normal living, where persons with this condition, they will speak of this intense sadness, intense, they'll feel fatigue, they have low energy, very, very little energy to do anything, even to think, to just make decisions, to do their daily activities of life, right? Even those things they have difficulty doing, and they will have this sense of hopelessness, helplessness, feeling very worthless, have a lot of like low self-esteem, feeling that they have difficulty concentrating. Some persons get very irritable, they very easily agitated. Persons will have difficulty sleeping, have loss of appetite. They will think like they will be very judgmental, and have very negative perspective of themselves and everything around them. And they'll feel the worst of everything. And in addition to that, and that's one of the markers of the severity of major depressive disorder, is when persons they will actually, the pain of being depressed is so much that they will actually rather not be around. So persons will start having suicidal ideations. Some people will actually work on it. And in addition to that, if the depression is severe, they will also present with loss of reality testing, where they may hear, have this, actually hear voices saying how they are the worst, and they're
Everything
very
that they
unfair.
imagine being played
Yes, but
over,
it's
like a
very
recorder.
negative. Yes. So it's really bad. But again, this is something that can be treated, and it does not take much to treat it. It does not take much to get help, and especially in Dominica, where we have this well organized and structured primary healthcare system, where persons can seek help for their conditions, their mental illnesses, just like every other medical condition. They present to their health center and speak to the doctor, where the doctor will assess them, everything, and then refer them if necessary. Or as I said earlier, I work in close collaboration with primary healthcare. So discussion between the doctors in primary healthcare and myself is constant, so it's very easy to get help when it comes to mental health. And additionally, I will just add here to demonstrate to individuals that there are really ways of getting help when it comes to your mental health. Just in, I think it was in September of last year, we were in 2025. It was in September of 2024. We collaborated with PAHO.
Yes, I remember for the
Yes,
mental health month.
to do yes, but before that, the Mental Health Month was in October, but in September,
Okay.
the Ministry of Health collaborated with PAHO to do this mental image gap workshop, and image gap meaning mental health gap action program. That's what it means, and we collaborated with them and to do this workshop for the healthcare workers, both in the primary healthcare and also at the DCFH. We had doctors and nurses in those two departments. We had to collaborate with them so that they could be better educated, because WHO, they launched this guideline, image gap intervention guide, and it's for mental, neurological, and substance use disorder. They launched this guideline to better, it's a tool really to empower individuals or healthcare workers who are in non-specialized healthcare settings to be better able to assess, diagnose, and treat mental illnesses. So, and this was necessary because they recognized that the need to provide the services for the MNS, the mental, neurological, and substance use disorders. There was a need for that, and not only that, they needed to bridge the gap between the available resources and the large need for these services, because we know that generally the resources are much less than the need that exists. So this image gap training, it came in, handy to better empower and assist in assessing, managing, and diagnosing mental illnesses in Dominica.
You spoke on two things, the two main things. You gave a little, a little breakdown of some of the signs that people might experience, some of the struggles they may have, and how to kind of recognize it. And one of the things that you spoke about, like, which kind of just, it had me like thinking almost for a second. I had to like take myself, like I had to catch myself because I started to think about it too much. About like when young children have exams, and or children have exams and they're unable to, they study but they're unable to, when it comes to to writing the tests, they forget everything, they go through this. And I think of how we're so hard on our children in the Caribbean in comparison to like Canada. Like they have everything is accommodations for this, accommodations for that. If a child is like, children, they recognize so quickly that children are at a different level, of understanding, of learning, and they may not learn as quickly as others. But we have this expectation that everybody has to do it at the same time and together. And when we do a test, even when you do a test, like even I teach at a university level, so I'm able to like I had to learn that, coming from a Caribbean setting, that students will have accommodations, and that you have to discuss their accommodations with them and grant it to them. So they'll come to you and they'll say, or their accommodations might say, they're allowed to request a time and a half to complete an assignment, or they're allowed, we don't have that in the, like, I don't, like, we don't have that. So it had me like for a second there, you had I and almost end up in a hole, right? Because I was just like, I'm like, all of these, because somebody made a comment about how university in the Caribbean is so difficult, and so, and it can affect people's mental health. I mean, they singled out an institution, but I don't think it's the institution. I think it's a general across the board where where there's a struggle. Like what is your take on that? And I know there are parents locked in, moms locked in as well. I see a lot of folks coming in, they're saying great conversation, and I know they're probably sharing, and they're probably sharing in their private group chats and stuff. Like, so I'm hoping that we not just as mothers, not just as educators in terms of the teachers, but mothers who are also educators. I think we say the health practitioners and people at the essential workers at the hospital, but educators too. Like they need that training,
Totally.
Pablo.
Totally. Totally. And Jael, I think too, one of the biggest reasons for this problem is our lack of awareness and understanding of this issue, right? And as you know, without the knowledge, without awareness, then it's going to influence our attitude, right? So a lot of times, and again, because of the stigma that is associated with just someone saying that they're not coping with their problems, or they believe that you recognize someone who is struggling with something, suddenly you see that and you just brand the person and you start saying they're crazy. But in the US and these places, you mentioned about the universities and the attitude they have a completely different attitude. In fact, they encourage students to let them know of if they have a mental health condition, so that they
They're just
can,
struggling at
yes,
home.
so that exactly. But so we really need to be sensitized in that way, in not only in Dominica but in the Caribbean, because if we are sensitized to those issues, guess what? Our attitude is going to change, and programs and everything will be placed to deal with these situations. Education at the school, I always believe that this is very important to start from childhood, and to incorporate mental health into the curriculum at school, so that the teachers themselves, the teachers and even the students, they will be better aware. They'll be more aware of these conditions. And whenever the students are faced with it, they'll be able to recognize it. And not only that, but th- things will be put into place to deal with those situations. And of course, you spoke of the parents, everybody has to play their part. So when a lot of parents, when they send their children to school, and they say is the teacher has to do, is the teacher that has to teach, is the teacher that has, but no, it's all of us. The teacher is just continuing the process, but it starts at home. It starts at home. So you have to be knowledgeable also of your child and what is happening with your child, so you can communicate it to the teachers. But if you're not even paying attention to it, you're ignorant of the fact, or when you see it, you blame it, you find all other reasons to justify what is happening, and you just ignore it. And not only that, in addition to ignoring it, your attitude is not one that makes it easy for the child to come to
Even
you
come to
and
you,
if
right?
there's anything. Then we just perpetuating the situation and we are not helping. But really, every one of us need to play a part. And so remember, I spoke earlier of the biopsychosocial determinants of mental health. So everything, it's from home, it's from our interactions with friends, interactions at church, the way you communicate with your children, it goes to the school, it goes to the genetic factors. It's all those different factors that have to come into, and genetic, the pregnancy, you know, of the woman. So all
Yeah.
those things, all this, the exposure during pregnancy, whether there were any complications during pregnancy. And then when you think of the social factors, we think of just the abuse, be it physical,
Oh my
emotional,
God.
sexual. We think of bullying at school. We think of the self-esteem. We think of the whatever trauma that the child was exposed to. It's countless. There are so many of those determinants that all come to play and determine, and influence what we see happening in front of us. So all we have to be mindful of them. Yeah, we really have to be mindful. And not only mindful, but when we recognize them, when we see that they're there, we need to manage them from the beginning. We need to nip them very early, because guess what? If we don't, it's going to worsen. It's going to worsen. It's going to be harder to manage. There's going to be faster and more deterioration, and at the end of the day, before you know it, it's too late. When I say it's too late, yes, there will be help, but because it festered for so long, you'll start having deterioration much faster. And you may get that person back to a state of functioning, but not the total functioning that they would have had they, been seen earlier and assessed earlier. And before we go on, just one last thing, especially when it comes to children, one of the problems that we have, and again, and that have been seen, and again, it all stems from lack of education, lack of awareness, is that the parents will say, me, my child not crazy. It's like, mommy, nobody is saying your child is crazy, but we're saying that this is something you can recognize this behaviors, these abnormal behaviors, or behaviors that are not in keeping with the child's age, etc. And it's easy to tell because of the way they interact with their peers. And you'll bring to their attention, and their attitude is just so terrible. And at the end of the day, the child is the one who suffers. The child is
Wow.
the one who suffers. So I'm saying all this to say every one of us need to be on board. Every one of us need to play a part.
Wow, you said that, when you talk about, the child and their and growing up, like the mom's birth, how the mom, how the pregnancy went. I just remembered, like, I was pregnant, newly pregnant, right after my mom died. And I remember people saying to me, "Don't cry now. It will go in the baby." Like people, but how do you even mourn when people are telling you, don't like, what do you do, and I feel almost like I didn't really mourn or grieve the death of my mom,
Because of
and because of that, because I was constantly like, oh, they say don't cry, you'll make your milk watery, they said all these kinds of things to me, I know you're feeling sad, Ella, I'm feeling sorry for you, but don't cry, because your milk will go get water and you'll be able to breastfeed the baby. Or don't cry even when you have the baby, like they talk about this, which happens obviously. You can suffer through postpartum depression, following giving birth to a child, and the way society kind of makes it seem like you're not supposed to go through these grievances, because anytime you go through it, it's like a sign of you falling apart, which essentially you crazy, you're gonna go crazy, yeah.
so, Jael, talking on this, grief is it's normal. It's normal if you lose, if there is loss of loved one or anyone that is important to you. It's normal to feel sad. It's a normal process. In fact, if it does not happen, this is what is abnormal. It's necessary, right? And a lot of times, if it's not done, then the person, it can affect the person later on in their lives.
Mhm.
Now, speaking of the pregnancy and you being pregnant and at that time and what was said to you, it's a fact that your emotions, your feelings, and everything that you're going through pregnancy, it's also going to affect what's happening in there. Just like what you put in your mouth is going to influence what the baby feeds on, and post delivery, it's a fact also. If your feelings, the children, they tend to connect with the emotions of the mother, so they
Mhm.
can sense those emotions, and they respond to them. So when we're pregnant, as women, when you're pregnant and when you're breastfeeding, you need to be mindful of those things. So I think that's what they were saying. They wanted to say to you. But in terms of, you mentioned the milk turning, it's all about the emotions and how it impacts the child. So yes, they will sense it and they will be more irritable. restless and fidgety, and you're wondering, it's because they can sense that emotion that you're experiencing. And
So, so Dr. Wallace, speaking from perspective of a mother who's probably just had a baby, you know, how does that specific person manage their own mental health? Like what are some of the things? Because I mean, I take myself back to that time. That was 14 years ago, right? For my second, I didn't have these issues, but for my first, it was very new. Um it was very fresh, and I take myself back, and I just remember, everybody would tell me what not to do, but nobody told me what to do. You know,
when
like
it when it comes to postpartum, I mean, Jill, it's one of the most important thing for a woman postpartum is support. She needs the support. She needs the emotional support. She needs the help, because with all these hormonal changes, and it's a change in their life, and that they have to adjust with. They have to adjust to. So it's important to really rely, or not necessarily rely, but accept the help that is offered from you by somebody else. And postpartum is one thing, but leading into that is also important. I mean, pregnancy, it starts from pregnancy to delivery to postpartum. It's one large state, and one can lead to the next. So a lot of times, persons who suffer with postpartum depression, it's because a lot of times it's because there is an underlying factor, or they have, variables, all these variables that come together and contribute to what you are seeing after the person has delivered. And it's going to be even worse if the person does not have support. So, like everything else, the mother who is breastfeeding, she needs to ensure that she sleeps sufficiently. So, she needs to ensure that she eats healthy, you know, and she needs to be in an environment that is conducive to the well-being, her well-being, and that of the child. So remember, I said the social factor. Yes. So if she's in an environment where she's being abused, if she's in an environment that she feels unwelcome, she feels unprotected, and that's not going to help. If she's not getting the support from others, that's not going to help. And that can influence how she feels about herself, how she feels towards a child. She may start having regrets if things are not working, and all this is just a cascade, and one may lead to the next. So it's important, as I said earlier, like everything else: rest, diet, support.
yeah.
Those three are the most important.
I like that you said support, because sometimes we say, um, the support you get, people come and say, "Oh, can I help you with this?" And say, "No, no, no, I'm fine. I'm fine." Especially because it's a newborn. You don't want, but I know, like, I had my kids in Canada. Well, my second at least, and I recall, the hospital said, "We're gonna send somebody to help you." So that is like the kind of support that they were willing to offer. They're like, we'll send somebody to help you. You can sleep, you can get your the baby's laundry done. I will take care of everything to do with the baby. We'll help you. And they sent somebody for 3 weeks. Like, I had somebody, and they after the 3 weeks they asked me, do you need
But,
an extended time, and they would like, and we like to say, no, 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 we don't want, but it's good to take, but it's not just good to take, it's also good for our community to offer, to help, so a mom in your network has a baby, offer to help, just to, I did that for a very good friend of mine, a couple years ago. I offered, I was doing my master's, and I knew I was gonna be indoors a lot and stuff. And I said, I will watch the baby for you. And I went, I offered to help her and stuff. And it's because I saw how important it was for me to get support. And I knew she had nobody around her in her like her family unit,
Right.
that would be able to help her. And I feel like we need to recognize that as Caribbean women, to help
Absolutely.
each other and offer, say, I'm coming to watch the baby for you while you go and get a pedicure, or while you go
Exactly.
and get a massage, or while
Right.
you go and get your hair done, or like offer to help, not just
Mhm. And
and
this makes such a big difference, Jael. You don't know how much of a difference it makes. And I remember a little story here. Um, at school, at med school, I remember one of our colleagues, she was pregnant and she had a baby, and we were taking turns in helping her to look after the baby. You know, who is not at class or finishes will babysit while she goes to school, and then and that's all of us came together, and it made things so much easier. It made a big difference. So yes,
Mhm.
so support is important. It is
Yeah.
important.
We talk about the child, we talk about children, we talked about babies, like moms with babies. You talk about a little bit about the communication that moms, like women, need to be a little bit like listen to when they you are, and also pay attention to your children to see their signs. Don't be dismissive of it. Don't just say, oh, your child is crazy, try and get help. But I want to talk a little bit about, as professionals, because sometimes we might not feel like we're meeting our full potential, or we're meeting our goals, or we're like, boy, I 40 already, and I didn't accomplish this, that, and the third. Or I'm 30 and I was not able to go to university, or like all of these things. Because I mean, people were surprised when I went to university. And it's not because I at the time when I wanted to go, it was a financial thing, and I started and had to drop out. And I'm using myself as an example because I feel like people will understand and they could probably see more of their story in what I'm sharing. So I don't mind using myself as an example. But then I went to school later, and even that was a stressor because I had two young children. There was a lot of stress around that. I left Dominica after Maria, not sure if you have a home to go back to, so many different things, and then feeling like, oh my God, professionally, I need to be at a certain level in my life. Oh, I'm so smart. Why am I not at that level? And not recognizing that, hey, when you could have gone, it wasn't your fault. It was a financial issue, or why you had to drop out, or why you couldn't continue. And how do we, as women, as Caribbean women, because I sense that as Caribbean women, we're very progressive. We're progressive not just in our homes, but in our careers. We want to all the accolades. You want all of this, and it doesn't always come. How can we maintain ourselves so that we don't allow for this to stress us out, or to eventually lead to issues with our mental health?
Right. So, JL, it's important for us to recognize that we all have different circumstances in our lives. Every one of us has different situations, every one of us has different values, and all these are important in determining when, how, where, why we do what we do. Okay, and so it's important for us as and focusing on us women, it's important that we don't try not to compare ourselves with others. Try to identify what are our strengths and how we can use our strengths to overcome our weaknesses, how we can use our strengths to help us to be a better person, to be that person that we want to be. And depending, things happen to us at different times, as I said. And it doesn't mean that if it did not happen to you at the same time that it happened with your friend or with a colleague, a neighbor, or someone, it doesn't mean that you're any less than that person. It does not mean that you are stupid. But what we need to do is at every time in our lives, always take stock of what is happening in our environment. Always take stock of where we are in our lives. Always take stock of what is important to us at that time and use all the resources that are available to us to help us to achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve at that time. And again, remembering things happen at different times. Now,
Mhm.
and they may not happen now, but what we could do also is prepare ourselves, use the resources available to us to prepare ourselves to be better positioned in the future when we will have the opportunity to achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve. So always, and as I always, one of the things that I say, whatever we have, we use it. If we have lemon, we make lemonade.
Mhm.
Whatever we have, that's what we're going to use to get whatever it is that we need to achieve. So, and also remembering that we are women, we are powerful. We are powerful. We and just recently I was speaking to a friend and was saying, the only thing that men have on women is their physical strength and nothing else. And I said, yeah, that's so true. Women are stronger emotionally. They are the ones, they are the homemakers, they are the ones who help put things together. So we should never underestimate our strengths. We should never underestimate our values. And no matter what situation that we are in, we should always remember that it's not constant, it's just at that time. It's
Mhm.
at that time, and whatever we need to use everything that we have, all the resources that we have available to us to better position ourselves to achieve what we want to achieve in the future.
Mhm. Thank you very much for sharing that. So we talk about people who um, different types of situations. But one of the things I'm interested to know is how do we talk to our loved ones about even our own mental health? Like, um, again, the stigma and everything that's associated with it. Sometimes we're just like, boy, we're going through it, and we don't know how to talk about it, and we also scared of how what people will say. Like, what happened to you now? Like just like I'll give you an example. Some I know, and that happened. It wasn't to me, but it was to somebody that I know. I remember somebody I knew lost a baby, and I remember, they were going through it, and I remember talking to somebody, and they were just like, "You lose a baby, like get over yourself now, like shake yourself up, my girl, like how you have yourself untidy, and you're just like, and I'm saying to myself, bro, like they lost a child." Like, it's not just like, and I'm thinking to myself, if that person has this kind of people in their community, their village, how do you tell somebody that you're feeling like unalive in yourself? How do you tell somebody that you're feeling depressed? How do you tell somebody that you're anxious? How do you talk to people about, like, how do you go about it?
So I will say to you, a lot of times the way we communicate ourselves and even the way we think influences what other persons think about us and what we see. So when you have high blood pressure, do you say it to everybody? When you suffer from, do you say it to everybody? No. So it's the very same thing with mental illness. You communicate it to the persons who are important, the persons who matter. So your support system, you have your family, you have your partner, and or a colleague at work, anybody anybody who you consider your support. And once you have that, that is one of the most important. So it's important to communicate this to those persons who matter. And by communicating it to them, again, if the person, if you mean something to that person, it will be easier for the person to make it their business to understand what is happening to you. make it their business to help you to go through whatever difficulty that you're going through. And once you have that support system, Jael, really, that's all that matters. Because if we go focusing on everybody else and what they think and what they say, guess what? We'll be trying to please everybody, and we are the ones who will be suffering. And we have to remember too, everybody has something that they're managing, every one of us. And just as you are going through your struggles, they are going through their struggles too. And the thing is, when it comes to mental illnesses, a lot of times they focus on the mental illness that you have, you listen to them and don't manage your mental health, don't take care of your condition. But guess what? They have something and they are taking care of it, and they are not worrying with what you say or what you think. Yet you think that you're going to be listening to them, and you are the one suffering. You are
Mm-hmm.
the one who is sick. It's
Okay.
you. So we need to sometimes we get distracted, and we focus on the wrong things. We focus on the wrong things in our lives, and what is important, we don't pay attention to it. And at the end, we say, is that person, we blame everything else on other people but ourselves. And at the end of the day, we have to take the responsibility for our lives. We have to take responsibility for our health. We have to take responsibility for our mental health. If we don't do it, nobody else will do it. They will talk, they will say all kinds of things, but guess what? You're the one who is suffering.
Yes. Having this conversation is stressing me out. Like I feel so stressed about this conversation. Like I don't even know what. Like
Oh
I
my
I
God,
can't
Jill.
stop myself digging my finger into, like, how many times I'm like, Jill, it's not that serious. Like because I feel like it's so important to me, like having, this information out there so people can know about it. And it's stressing me out as a result. I wanted to, I started the conversation talking about, the season and all of that, and we're in the longest month of the year, January. We
Yes.
call it the longest month.
Yeah.
And I know from living in Canada, there's and I've never really sought out um any help in Dominica. I'm not sure if they would use the same terms, but I know there's this term called SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder, or some people call it post holiday blues, you know, where people feel like really sad. Sometimes, you're going into the new year, and you're like, oh gosh, I didn't accomplish a lot last year, or you feel broke, you don't have $1 in your bank account, or you just probably don't have the people who you'd want to be around you, and you just feel very sad and very down about that. And I kind of want to understand, how can I manage being sad, or that, I guess, the acronym,
That
is that the same
seasonal.
acronym that you use? So how can I manage that, um, going into or being at the start of the new year and looking ahead? What are some of the things that I can do to manage that?
So you said SAD, seasonal affective disorder. It's interesting what we liken that acronym to, but it's really well. And again, you see this more in temperate countries,
Mhm.
where persons tend to be going to this depression because of the season. When it gets colder,
Mhm.
and they tend to get that depression, that
Mhm.
depressed mood. And that's what you see, not so much in countries like ours, but what you're saying, it is really focusing on the season, where
Yes.
after use the season, you've used up all most of your resources, and then you start in January, and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And
Especially because people get paid earlier in December,
yes,
in the island. So I try to use the same, because even in my own research, I've said, you know what, it's seasonal for them in the North America, but it's very seasonal for us too.
because in that regard. But you know what, Dale? Every year we go through the very same thing, and we still do the very same thing. We don't learn. So we need to learn from this and recognize, remember, December, the season is true. We want to do all this, but we still have January to come. So, in other words, we need to learn from the mistakes of the previous years and use our experiences to better prepare us for the future. But over and over, we keep doing the very same thing. And then when it happens, we scratch our
My mother
heads.
used to say, Noel c'est un jour. Christmas is one day, you know?
We
So,
scratch our heads. So, and some people say, I'm leaving for today, tomorrow will take care of itself. And they
mhm.
will say that over and over again. And when the following year comes, they do the same thing. But I'm saying this to say we just need to better prepare. Preparation is the key. And if we do that, we will see that when that time comes, because of the preparation that we made prior, we'll be better able to manage our finances, manage, our lives, and do what we have to do. But in the event that it was not done, and then you're faced with it in January, guess what? We have to now sit down and to go back to the drawing board and try to analyze, okay, our situation and see what we need to prioritize, what we need to, put on hold for the time and do them in, manage our lives in order of priority until we just deal with everything, in that fashion, and then we'll be better if be better prepared or secure to do everything else. So importantly is to prioritize, because we're in that space already. So then you have to sit down and put things, and deal with things one at a time in order of priority. And that will help us. That
Wow.
will help us.
When is it when do I decide that I need to seek help for my mental health? I think you touched on it at the start, but I
Yes.
would like you to expand on it a bit. Like when do I know that she ain't right? I
So
need to.
again, and something the mistake that we make is to wait until we are crumbling for us to seek help and to manage our mental health. We don't have to allow it to get to that point, to that stage before we seek help for our mental health. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, this is constantly at work. So we need to expect that it will need servicing. We need to recognize, first of all, that it needs servicing also. And we need to, just as we have regular appointments to see our physician. We have yearly appointments to see our physician, sometimes twice a year, sometimes once yearly. We need to have that very same attitude when it comes to our mental health. So we need to have twice yearly, and I would say it's even more frequently, at least quarterly, so that we can manage our mental health at least quarterly, to have these reviews just to make sure, because we have stress in our lives constantly.
Mhm.
Constantly it's there, so we need to keep track of this all the time. And don't wait until you're not able to function. Don't wait until you find that you're just getting easily agitated and you cannot be as productive as you know you can be and as you know you should be. Don't wait until the slightest stressor makes you
Stress.
break.
Stress.
Don't wait until that happens,
Mm.
because by when that happens it means that, okay, things are really serious and you should have done this long time. So the best advice I can give to individuals is see their mental health as important as their physical conditions. And I recommend at least quarterly, not assessments but checks, quarterly checks, to
And what would that look like? Because somebody might say, "What do I do? Do I just call up my doctor and say, I need to check my
ensure.
mental health?" Like,
So
how does that look?
So you can present to the health center, as I said earlier, and just have a conversation with your doctor. Just have a conversation with your doctor, and just speak about, free speaking. Just speak about what's happening with you, and the way you find that you're dealing with situations. If you have any concerns about what is happening and what's not happening with you. And sometimes by just speaking about it, as I said earlier, you get you know so much, you learn so much, you get different perspective on so many things. And by the time you leave, you feel it's like, oh, I feel so much better. I feel so lighter. Just speaking to you about it, now I can think, I'm thinking differently, I'm feeling differently about this whole situation. And things make more sense to me right now. I have a better understanding. So, and that's all it takes. Now, if after you present to your doctor, they recognize that it's more than they can manage, then they will refer you to the specialist so that you can be seen by the specialist. So this is it's as easy as this, jail. So
Yes.
that's one aspect, that if you're going for the public system, you go for the either your health center or well, we encourage persons to go through their health to the health center because it's not an emergency, and that's one way. Or they can, if they want to see a psychiatrist privately, that is also available.
I want to head to the chat because I've been neglecting the chat a little bit. I've been reading it, but just neglecting it a little because people are writing some long paragraphs. I saw we have many doctors and consultants and psychiatrists and therapists in the chat, and people are giving their views. And sometimes I don't want. Sometimes I want to bring in the views, but sometimes I don't want the views to mess with other people's, how what they're thinking, or even their ability to listen and take in what you are saying as a professional coming on. So I just want to run through what some of the folks were saying as it relates to just really like shouting you out. A lot of folks have been saying Dr. Wallace is such an amazing person. That's Leandra Paul. Heather is saying, thanks for talking to us. Vanessa's being trying to be comical. She says, is whiskey right for my mental health? Oh, because it chases. I feel we need a little bit. We need a little bit of laughter, Vanessa. Thank you very much for that, Vanessa. She wants to know, so there are trained counselors on island who can assist with therapy. Someone is saying that is destined for greatness packet. Folks are saying mental health needs to be advocated more. A lot more people don't like to talk about it because it's so heavily stigmatized, as Dana Jubik is saying that. Iola is saying best doctor ever, blessings to you, Dr. Wallace. Shelly-Ann is saying love her, she is awesome. Marv is saying Dr. Wallace for the win. Billy is saying doc, I'm coming to shake your big toe. Gail is saying good evening, Gail Bruni. Someone Regina is saying more support, and Dr. Wallace is the best. Janice is saying nice to see you, Dr. Wallace. Good evening to you. So a lot of folks have been chiming
Thank you,
and
everyone. It's
really
my pleasure sharing this information to
giving
you.
their support, and I feel like we need a part two and a part three. And I know we've spoken a
Yes,
little while ago. We'd spoken about, you probably coming on a little bit more often, just to, share. As a matter of fact, we thought about an entire thing to do, but we'll keep that in the bag still for
right.
now. But I feel like this is information like we could literally touch on a different aspect. Like I tried to kind of keep it vague to touch on children, touch on, we didn't even touch on men, and specifically it's because men is not, I'm not trying to put you out, we're not trying to leave you out. I just felt like this is something that at the start of the year, women tend to go through it more than men. They tend to feel a little bit more uneasy about their life and their goals. They probably Valentine's Day around the corner and they don't have a boo, and they ended the year New Year's Eve without a boo. And like it goes through. The women go through the most, right? So I felt like we needed to start off, and of course, men, if there's a huge interest and you'd like us to bring Dr. Wallace back on, let us know, and I will do my best to do that. I wanna have proper. I wanna I have so many more questions, but I know time is of the essence. It's your first day back at work. I don't want to stress you out, right? So my final question would be, and then obviously I will leave it up to you and to talk to us about resources, like local resources in terms of in Dominica. But essentially, I want to get a sense of what are some of the simple daily habits that we can do to kind of boost our mental health.
Okay, so one of the major contributing factor is stress, right? So we need to find ways to distress. We need to communicate our stress when we have stresses. At least one individual that you can trust and you know that you can confide in and you know who has your back and they can help you. And don't just speak to anybody who is not going to help you. If you give any information to anyone, let it be because they can make a positive difference or influence in your life. If that's not the case, don't say anything to them. And again, by communicating, as I always say, if you have a problem and the minute you share it with someone, guess what? Suddenly that problem is 50-50. You give the person 50% and you have the other
There's
50%.
less.
You no longer have it 100%. And by just doing that, you'll be amazed to see how much information you get. So by just getting this something that you felt was so huge, suddenly it's like, what? I never thought of that. I never thought of it in that way. So you get different perspective of dealing with your situations that you never entertained before. And that makes such a big difference. Other ways of distressing, as we always the usual that we know, getting is exercising. It's important also to have a healthy diet. It's important for us to eat healthy because believe it or not, certain deficiencies can contribute to us having certain mental illnesses, mental disorders. So we need to have a balanced diet. Sleep is important. Sleep is extremely important. Okay. Also, we need to find ways of, a lot of times we pay so much attention on the negative in our lives and we don't focus on the positives. Sometimes the negatives, they are just minute, they're so tiny, and the positives are huge. Yet we focus on that one negative, that big, that little one negative, and we forget about all the other good things that we have in our lives. In other words, we need to start magnifying the positive aspects of our lives in our lives and minimizing the negatives in our lives. And no matter how small they are, or no matter how small the positive is, if we maximize it, it will be more important in our lives. A lot of times also we don't have enough gratitude for all this the blessings and all the positive that surround us, and we'll only focus on just negatives. And we have to realize too that what we do, our emotions, they're going to impact the emotions of other people around us. So when we have all these negative emotions, it will be communicated to people around us, and with it will, what you'll feel is it will have the overall negative impact on everything. I spoke initially about communication. I cannot stress how important that is. We need to share. We need to share. We also need to recognize that situations in our lives, they are not constant. When we're going for a negative, to a for some trials or challenges in our lives, we need to recognize that it's not the end. We need to learn. We always need to stop and ask ourselves, what did I do? What worked for me in the past? Because a lot of times, what worked for us in the past can also work for us in the future. So, in other words, we need to learn from our experiences. We need to learn from the experiences of others and use them to our benefit. To our benefit. Because again, I'll stress again, nothing is constant. everything in our life is fleeting. So whenever we're going for a challenge in our life, we need to recognize that, that too will come to an end. But not only that, but while we're going through it, try to use whatever resources we have available to us, be it a friend, be it a family member, be it a pastor, be it a colleague, whatever. We need to try to use the resources that we have in our lives to help us to go through our challenges, and always remembering that we we do have positives that we can focus on, we can reflect on, to help us to go through the challenges that we have. And a lot of times, Jael, we don't focus on our strengths. When we experience those challenges, we forget our strengths and we just focus on the weaknesses. But we need to use our challenge, our strengths to help us to go through the challenging situations that we experience every time. And too many times when we have a stressor, we think of it in a negative way. But a lot of times, if you really sit down, a stressor can actually be positive. It can be used in a positive way. It can be used to get us to have a change of career. It can be used to get us to go somewhere else. For example, I can tell you, I'm sure I would ask you, has any one of us, achieved anything good without stress? If we ask ourselves and if we were honest with ourselves, we'll say no. Everything that is worthwhile and everything that means
Yes,
something.
let me tell you, when I was doing my master's, I was stressed. I
Yes,
was like,
you had to go through stress, and even the stress of this. And we think that if we fail, that is the worst thing. But no, we should see failure as use our failure to help us to improve, to do better. Okay, I failed because I was using that method. I need to use another method. What other method can I use to overcome? Use that failure to motivate us to succeed, to do other things to succeed. Um, I remember using me as an example here, even going to specialize. I remember saying, you know what? I need to go and specialize in something that I enjoy doing. So that's where I will be. And I will not be just going, all over. And because in medicine, there are certain aspects as a physician that you will enjoy more than others, right? And that's why we specialize in certain fields and not others,
right.
right? So that was one of my motivation. It's like, I need to go and specialize so that I can do what I enjoy doing, and I will not have to be going to the other areas that I don't particularly, enjoy that much. So yes, so these are some of the methods or the ways we can use to help us to cope with our
I
stresses.
was saying, yes, part two. Yes, true. Sending the clapping. What are some of the resources? Like, I know I mean, you've mentioned obviously talking to your doctor when you go in. You know, I saw people asking questions earlier on. I think a lady asked a question about, where can children go, to, I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. Probably you might have, like people want to know what sort of resources are there. Because I know often we think of going to a psychiatrist or going to a therapist and we think expensive. We think that this is going to be expensive. I don't know about that. I don't have money for that, and it stresses us out and we don't end up going.
So as I said earlier, through the public system, just as you have the services for all the other medical conditions, this also exists in Dominica. And it's a matter of presenting to any of your health centers where the doctor will see you, the doctor will assess you, and if you need to be referred to the psychiatrist, well, in the health system, that's what it is a psychiatrist. So if that has to happen, then you'll be referred to the psychiatrist, and The psychiatrist assesses you and starts working with you and sees you as an outpatient. And you do, yes, and you do the same therapy, the sessions for that system. So it exists.
Yes,
It's
thank
it's
you.
not
Thank you
it's
very much.
not only in the private sector. It exists in the public
But
sector.
if you have your money and you want to go to your therapist,
Well, you have options. You have options.
I
You
love
know
the way that COVID opened up the online versions of it. You know,
that
people now
too.
have
That
online.
exists.
People, and if sometimes sometimes people might say, "Oh, I don't do none of my business." You can go outside of Dominica. You can find people outside of Dominica because obviously people have their reservations about who and what they want to say to and who they want to say to, so that obviously exists. But I just want to say, thank you very much, Dr. Wallace, for really starting off our health series this month with a bang. You're definitely helping us get our minds right, or at least in the right mindset, so that we can have a productive month or what's left of it, and as well a productive year. Some of the things that to pay attention to. I love the fact that you brought those up, and I wish that we could have you on another time, and we will obviously see, if schedule permitting, if you could come back another time, and even if it's when during mental health month, or even before that, to come
Before
in
that,
and
no
share
problem.
share with us, and we could probably run a poll and see what people want to focus on, and we can target
Sure,
that issue head on. I want to say
no
thank you very much.
problem.
I want to leave you with the final words. Like, if you have any final words that you'd like to share, I'd like you could do that now.
So thank you very much, Jael, for inviting me to your show. It was a pleasure being here and sharing information to you and your listeners. And thank you to all of you, for your support. I really hope that this information has better will better equip you to take care of your mental health, to be aware of the importance of your mental health. And when anyone use it also to educate the others, educate persons around you so that you can influence attitudinal change. Because with education, with awareness, we hope that this would influence change. And this is what we really need when it comes to mental health. We need persons to be more sensitized. We need persons to have a better attitude, have a different mindset when it comes to mental health. And when that happens, we will see that the discrimination and stigma that exists will be much less, and it will make it much easier for persons who have mental issues with their mental health, or persons who just want to take care of their mental health. It will make it much easier for persons to present and to seek help when they need. Because as I mentioned earlier, there is nothing better and more important than having a good mental health. Without this, we have nothing, and we can't function. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wallace. We ran a poll at the start of the show. If you felt anxious or depressed, would you see a psychiatrist? We had 26 people respond. 92% of them said definitely, and 2% said no, I'm scared of what people would say. So we
And
still have people who are scared, and hopefully with this we've changed your mindset, and you'll be more willing to speak about it. And after I tell you all my business, they're like I use myself as a guinea pig for all this, nothing to be afraid of or ashamed about, right? So thank you very much again,
most
Dr. Wallace,
welcome. Most
for coming
welcome. It
on.
was a pleasure being here with you.
It
And
was
all the best for the new year.
same to you, my dear. All the best
Thank,
to you
thank you
for
very
the
much.
year.
Okay,
Thank
have yourself a good night. Bye bye.
you too. Bye bye. Guys, that was it for our first episode of our health series for the month of January. Such a wonderful guest. Dr. Wallace's voice is so soothing. Like, you just want to be like, tell me more, Such a soothing voice. I'll definitely try and have her come back another time. Next week, Tuesday, we have another topic for you on this month's health series, and that is sponsored by the Ray Astor Foundation. So we're going to be talking about stroke, and we're going to be focused in. We'll have Dr. Andrew will be on as well with another doctor from the American Canadian School of Medicine will be stopping by to share with us. So I want to encourage you to remain locked in. We also have fitness. We're going to be talking for the month, and we also have nutrition. We got a packed month for you. You know, trying to get you in a good health for the month of January, but we'll lead it continuing. You know, because a lot of people like to do New Year's resolutions. So I just played into your New Year's resolution right about now. Tomorrow we got Marvel will be stopping by. Marvel Williams. I am so excited to hear Marvel's story. Listen, everything on the table. We asking all kinds of questions tomorrow. So make sure you drop in. If you don't follow, make sure you like, you follow, and subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you get notified when we go live. I'm saying that especially for those of you who don't follow and like to comment. You no longer can comment if you don't follow, so you gotta follow. Okay, so you can comment so we can see your comments. I don't see any of your comments if you're not a follower. I want to thank all of you for your support. We've gone up. We're at 65K followers strong, and I want to say thank you very much to all of you who've shown your support. Those of you who are looking at this as a repeat, make sure you share, make sure you like, make sure you follow, and stay tuned. I promise I'll do my best to continue to give you guys really great content that will not just entertain, but will also edify. All right. I want to say thank you very much to all of you wonderful listeners, my faithful fans and followers and friends and family, my quadruple Fs. Thank you very much for your support and your love, and for sharing the live, and for coming on here and really engaging with us, and Dr. Wallace here this evening. Thanks again to my sponsors. Thank you to the National Cooperative Credit Union. Don't forget to check them out for their promotion that continues until the 28th when you purchase additional shares with the NCC. That's your way of supporting and maintaining your financial partner. I also want to say thank you very much to Caribe. I also want to shout out all of the folks who have been getting their Black Island Girl t-shirts and their sweatshirts and their bucket hats, and those of you who have been on subscribing to my videos on blackislandgirl.com/big videos. You can get to see documentary territory. You can also see all of the other content that I share there. Will be on there for you. Thanks again to my wonderful producer. Thank you to you, Samaj, for all of your help. My wonderful team, Annika, and the rest of the gang. Wishing you guys a happy Tuesday, and remember to stay good to yourself. Be good to your mind. Be good to yourself. Love yourself. Tomorrow we on with Marva on an exclusive interview. That's my time. Gonna pay some bills, and we're out of here. Peace out and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
NCCU, your community financial partner, brings to you Beyond the Mortgage.
Affordable rates, affordable price. NCCU, everything nice. Go do a course, go take a trip. Beyond the mortgage, 246. You take the mortgage already. Don't make your pocket go empty. Beyond the mortgage, NCCU will keep you steady. You need to buy a new fridge. You want to purchase a city. Get rid of medical bills and invest in the green energy. Beyond the mortgage, beyond the mortgage, beyond the mortgage. Everything nice. Beyond the mortgage, beyond the mortgage, beyond the mortgage. NCCU for life. 246, yes, 246. Wow, 246.
Beyond the Mortgage, 2% savings, 4% retirement solutions, loans available at 6%, and our special BTM line of credit. Terms and conditions apply.
Caribe Hard Cider. Moments made extraordinary.
I love the Kalinago territory, I love the Kalinago people, and I really embrace my culture.
How the hell do we expect to survive as a communal society in a capitalist system?
We need to teach that history that have not been taught.